All right, so this whole unit was about determining if triangles are congruent, if they are congruent, figuring out which corresponding parts are congruent, those type of things. And so we saw side, 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 angle, angle, side, angle, and then for right triangles, hypotenuse, leg. Those were ways that we could conclude triangles are congruent. Sometimes they give you enough information and sometimes they don't. So we do have to keep in mind that they might not give you enough information to prove that the triangles are congruent. All right, so for number one here, we've got two pairs of sides that are congruent, and then this third pair have the same measure. So by the definition of congruence, we can say they're congruent. And so by side, 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 we can say these triangles are congruent. Number two, we've got this pair, these angles are congruent, these sides are congruent, and then we've got these vertical angles here, and vertical angles are always congruent. They always have the same measure, and so we can determine that these triangles are congruent by angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle. Happens to be choice D here. Number three, we happen to use vertical angles again. And so those angles are congruent. So we have side, angle, side, side, angle, side, congruence. All right, number four. On this one, we've got the right angles, and then we've got the hypotenuse is congruent. And we notice, hopefully, that the leg here is used in both. So by the reflexive property, that's congruent to itself. And so we can say by hypotenuse leg. So in general, angle, side, side is not a way to prove triangle congruence. But when you have that as a right angle, then we call it hypotenuse leg. Hypotenuse leg. We only use the terms hypotenuse and leg if it's a right triangle. So this one is yes by hypotenuse leg. All right, we've got the reflexive property at work here. And so we've got angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side. So yes, these are congruent by angle, angle, side, choice C. All right, and then on this one we see angle, side, side, angle, side, side. That is not a way to prove triangle congruence. So we'd say no, or at least that we have not enough information to prove that the triangles are congruent. Which angle corresponds to angle W? Well, these congruent statements are written in the way that they correspond. So W matches up with G. So angle W and angle G are congruent. So you could just say angle G, or you could say angle W is congruent to angle G. Those corresponding angles are congruent. Identify the triangles that are congruent. So we have the first triangle listed already, STU. They are congruent in the way that they correspond. So S has, that angle is made up of 3 and 2 marks, 3 and 2 marks, so that's X over here in this other triangle. Next we see angle T. T is made up of 2 mark and 1 mark. So 2 mark and 1 mark would be V. And then finally angle U, 1 mark and 3 marks, 1 mark and 3 marks over here is W. Now you could just kind of verify this, you could mark up your angles and make sure they make sense. So angle S corresponds to angle X. That's good. Angle T and V. And then U and W are the ones that appear to be 90. Probably. We don't know for sure. Number 9, we have triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. We want to find the values of X and Y. Alright, so looking at the X, I'm noticing it's along with the Y, so I need to know Y before I can figure out X. So let's look at the Y's. The Y's have to do with the angles here. Angle E and angle B are congruent because we have congruent triangles, and so the corresponding angles are congruent. And so we can say 4y minus 20 has to equal 80. We can solve that equation, add 20 to each side, and then divide by 4. So y is 25. Now that we know what y is, we can figure out x. So DE, first and second position matches up with AB. So we can say 2x minus y equals 13, and we know what y is 25. From here we got a two-step equation, add 25, and so we have 2x equal to 38. And then to get rid of multiplying by 2, we can divide by 2. And x is 19. So we found both x and y. Number 10, what additional information is needed for side, side, side? Well, we've got two pairs of sides. This side's congruent to this side. This one is congruent to this one. So we just need that third pair of sides. And so we need to know for sure that segment BC is congruent to segment HI. Number 11, what information is needed for side angle side? Well, we have two pairs of sides already, so we just needed that included angle. So if we knew that angle F was congruent to angle R, we would know by side angle side that the triangles are congruent. Now as far as side, 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 we need the third pairs of sides. So DE must be congruent to PQ. All right, what additional information is needed for angle side? Well, we have these angles congruent, these angles are congruent, so we have the two angles, we just need the third side. That third side could be either BC. BC is congruent to LM. Or an alternate answer, the third side could come from NM being congruent to AC. So you just have to list one of those answers for that third side. We've got an isosceles triangle here. Notice the markings. And so those sides are congruent, their lengths are equal, so we can write 2x minus 9 equals 7. Two-step equation from there, add 9, Get 2x equals 16, and then divide by 2. And so we get x equal to 8. So we found x. Now for y is an angle measure. These angles will be congruent because the sides across from them are congruent. And so the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So we can write 2y plus 120 equals 180. Divide both, or sorry, I'll subtract 120 first. And so we have 2y equal to 60, and then divide by 2. So y is 30. We found both x and y. That was our goal here. The angles in an equilateral triangle are all 60. Now here we've got two parallel lines cut by a transversal. And so alternate interior angles will be congruent. So we can say the measure of angle 1 is 60. For the measure of angle 2, well, it's supplementary to the measure of angle 1 because they're same side interior. Or you could look at the fact that they are a linear pair, and so they're supplementary that way as well. So the measure of angle 2 is equal to 180 minus 60. Measure of angle 2 is 120. All right, we're given that line segment ST is congruent to line segment UT. Our goal here is to prove that triangle SWT, so this one is congruent to UWT. All right, so before we look at those two triangles, let's look at these other triangles and see if we can learn anything. All right, so this side is congruent to itself by the reflexive property. And then we have enough for side angle side. This would have to be a right angle because it's a linear pair with one that's a right angle. And those would be supplementary. So 180 minus 90 is 90. All right, so we have enough for side angle side. We can say triangle SVW is congruent to triangle UVW by side angle side. Now, once you determine that those are congruent, then we can say the corresponding parts are congruent. So side SW is congruent to side UW. SW first and third position, UW first and third position. And that's by CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. CPCTC. And then if you notice the reflexive properties at work here, I should have used different markings there. Let's see, I already have that. All right, so 4 there. And then here, WT is congruent to itself. And so that's the reflexive property. And now you can see by side, 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 these triangles are congruent. So to answer the question, we can say yes, triangle SWT is congruent to triangle UWT by side, side, side. All right, we've got one proof we're going to complete here. Segment AD is congruent to segment DC. And then angle ADB is congruent to angle CDB. Those two angles are congruent. That's all given to you. Now we've got the reflexive property at work here. BD is congruent to BD. Reflexive property. And then we have enough for side angle side. Triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD by side angle side. Side angle side. Side angle side. Alright, so hopefully this video was helpful in you checking your answers and making any corrections.